Hey guys, this is going to be a multi-part series on ERC-721 tokens. I hope it brings some clarity to any potential confusions within the ERC-721 and NFTs. Okay, so first of all, let me pull down shapes. If you've seen my channel before, sometimes we use the lucid charts, which is super fun, right? Okay, so here we have an ERC-721 token. Hopefully, guys, is a decent explanation of tokens and just kind of how the thing works, right? So basically, how do I put it? We're going to have a few things here. We have our ERC-721 token. We have an IPFS network, which is the interplanetary file storage, right? IPFS network. Let's look that up real quick. Interplanetary file system, excuse me. It's a decentralized file storage. And basically what this is it allows for us to access content in any sort of IP address, any sort of location, right? Because as long as we just tap into the IPFS network, we should still have access to the content. So that's just a rough kind of tertiary bit to make this whole thing work. So let's break it down to a few more pieces. We have our blockchain here, right? And I'll even just pretend to make it look like a little blockchain, right? So we have a block, we have a block, we have a block, right? Really, it should go the other way. So technically, these are all blocks here. Hold on, guys. It's going to make sense in a moment. It's going to make sense in a moment. So technically, these are all blocks, right? With data on them. So each block has a new bit of data. And all of these accumulations obviously make the blockchain. So this is roughly the three kind of pieces we need for our system of NFTs, our ERC-721 tokens. I hope this is a decent explanation, or at least the building blocks to, pun intended, the building blocks to ERC-721 NFTs. Really just ERC-721 tokens. So if we have a front end over here that is, let's say, in React, now that we kind of have our building blocks, hopefully I can start talking about how these action items actually piece together. So we have a front end over here, and we have a smart contract with features, right? This smart contract, typically, I write code in Solidity and JavaScript or TypeScript, so this would actually be next and probably third web for me. But tomato, tomato. We have some sort of front end, and we have a smart contract that's actually deployed on the blockchain, but I'm putting it up here in the same bucket as the front end because we're going to access the functionality from the front end. Does that make sense? So we're going to say, I want to mint an ERC-721 token. Let's get this even off the screen real quick. We're going to say, I'm going to mint it. I want to view who's got NFTs. Basically, all that functionality is going to be baked into our smart contract, but we're going to access all that functionality through our front end. So I'm kind of piecing these two things together to some degree. It's how my brain likes to look at it, even though technically the smart contract's deployed over here, right? But let's kind of view it through this lens, because I think it helps me a lot understand kind of how this stuff works. So within our front end, we have that decision to mint a token, right? So we're going to produce an ERC-721 token with that functionality from the smart contract. So we press a button with our wallet address, all that stuff, and boop, out pops this ERC-721 token. Now, the key here, when we mint this token, obviously all this data and transaction gets hashed onto the block. You guys can ignore all this. This is work stuff over here. So let me give myself a little bit of space. But this ERC-721 token does get hashed onto a block, the transaction hash, the timestamp of it all, which block ID it goes on, whether it's on this block or you know, this one or whatever. So all that does happen when we press mint, we send some gas fees, boom, it gets hashed onto the blockchain. But of the things that get stored in the ERC-721 token is right now, I'll say it's like a pre-signed URL. So there's kind of two or three things that get hashed onto a token that are key. There's a lot more beyond, but there's, you know, timestamps, hashes, which blockchain. But there's kind of 2 to 3 important things that get hashed onto this token. And let's see, my circle's not staying a circle. This is some bullshit. So that's kind of a circle there. But the 3 things that get hashed onto our ERC-721 token, we have a wallet address. So I'll say OX123 just to represent the wallet address. We get a token ID. So I'll say ID or token number. Basically, this will be the very first token, right? But that could be some random string UUID, or a lot of contracts just keep it simple. They just numerate them one at a time. And you're able to do that because it's specific to this smart contract. This token number 1 is specific to this smart contract. So That's why if I make a ERC-721 token with token ID number 1 and you make a token with token number 1, they're associated to our own contracts. So those are 2 parameters that we get, is our wallet address, who owns this token, right? The token ID of which token it is. And then finally, this third bit of metadata that gets hashed onto the token, kind of put in this block of data, if you will, or this token of data, is actually going to be a string URI. And this string is going to be, as I mentioned, like a pre-signed URL. So maybe I could find one real quick. Just a pre-signed URL. It's just a fancy word for a link to a image. Now, this link, this fancy URL is actually going to be a link onto the IPFS network, so that way it's always accessible. So I know that's kind of a lot. I'll kind of hash out more of it real quick. Let's break out all these pieces. This is perfect. I just wanted to steal this link real quick so we could see. So boom, here's a link of LinkedIn, pun intended. So it's just a link of an image. So let's take all the because sometimes when we talk about blockchain engineering, we talk about ERC-721 tokens, it's like, oh my gosh, this is such freaking heady stuff. No, it's a link to an image. Like let's unpack it. Hold on 1 second. It's a pre-signed URL to an. So now the trick part is this pre-signed URL. This is actually just Wikipedia's or Wikimedia's, but we would actually store, let's say, oh, look at that. That is cool. Did not think that would actually work, but it worked. So this fancy link right here, let's exit out. This would actually get stored onto the IPFS. And the IPFS would obviously make their own link of it. So it would say like IPFS, I think it's / something like this. And it'd be like LinkedIn image. So it would just make its own link of it. LinkedIn image URL. So let me actually move that. And this LinkedIn image URL is really just the pre-signed URL. And we could put other parameters to make sure there's a wallet address, all that stuff. But it's pretty much a link to an image on this IPFS network. And that is going to be the third thing stored on this ERC-721 token. So I know that kind of takes some of the glistening, the shine off of it, because you're like, really? It's just an image link? Yes. Yes. So that's kind of, and the brilliance behind it, as much as I did just kind of downplay it, it's just so we can understand it in a really bite-sized format, because I'm also leaving out a lot of other metadata and other things alongside of this, but really to just understand and digest the concept of what we're doing is that. So this ERC-721 token gets hashed onto the blockchain, right? And that way, when people say, who owns token number 1, right? Whether they query it on the front end, we could say, who owns this token? Boom. We now have that information. Well, this guy owns the token. This guy owns token number 1, or so on and so forth if we have 50 tokens. And then we also, right, when people talk about their NFTs and images, we also could say, what is our NFT? Boom. Well, we go to the IPFS system and we look for this link. Or really, realistically, we click this link or show this link associated to this token, and it's pointing at the IPFS system. So we're not actually storing and doing some sort of base 64 encoded storage onto the blockchain. We're really just pointing at an IPFS network, which is still brilliant, which is still a really brilliant system. And the reason for that is because we can actually do this with other formats of media. So obviously the NFT craze has been very much about images and things of this aptitude and nature, but fundamentally we can do this with a lot of media, and it really is amazing because it is actually all transcribed data. It is open source data. We can all access the data. So the media image here is just an example of what you could use. A lot of people have talked about doing it with real estate. They've talked about doing it with car notes. They've talked about doing it with a variety of things. And that's actually where some of the brilliance of NFTs hash out even more. Imagine, like, we all have wallets with IDs in them. Imagine if our ID, our state issued ID, I'm in the United States for depending on who's watching this, but we have state issued IDs over here in which we have an image, we have a whole bunch of stuff. So we have an image, we have our height, we have our weights, our skin color, roughly, I think our skin color's on there. We have our hair color, we have our eye color, we have a whole bunch of things, and even the state we're in. imagine in a future world where you could just pull up your, maybe there's some and this actually might be a good SaaS idea, so I may not want to say it, but I'll say it. Imagine some world in which there's some governmental entity. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to say it because we're going to build it. We're going to build it. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. But you probably understand what I'm saying. Is you could build an ID associated to NFTs as well. Not only that, but you could do any forms of media. This would just be for person's ID, where you have their picture, you have their height, their weight, their address, their all these things, right? And it could still operate under the same deal. It's just this blockchain would have to be some publicly known blockchain that the quote unquote government would reuse, things like that. The other bit, you could do other things too. It could be car notes, like when your car was serviced. So it could literally be any bit of data. Car serviced, car service dates. You could have all that stuff in the car that was serviced, like the model of it, right? The car, the model, the year of the car, year of the service, right? Like you could have all these bits of data and literally make some sort of system in which a car dealership or the people who change oil and kind of car shops and stuff would actually hash their work onto a blockchain. That way, when you go to sell your car, and let's say every time you got car work done, you just hashed a new ERC-721 token, said, okay, this one's actually now, after 85 people did it, this would be token, 57 or whatever. It would be a new date. Then you could have, in the future, let's say a year after that, you get another service, and it's token 175 at that point, or whatever. And this way, when you go to sell your car, you could actually show people, oh no, I got it serviced here, I got it serviced here, I got it serviced here. Here's the transaction hash of all of these things, been on the blockchain. It's freaking been here forever. Here's the timestamp, here's the gas fees, I did it this date, you can see my wallet address, you can see everything here. I'm the owner of this wallet, here's my wallet, boom. This is proof that I've got service on my car. And yeah, so those are just kind of two ideas, well, three ideas really with NFT media storage, and then you have ID storage, and then car note storage or car service storage. It could take place in any sort of domain, but this is kind of the underworkings of ERC-721 tokens.